Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to treat the market like a giant, complex machine. Have you ever wondered why suddenly the shelves at your local store are completely empty of your favorite snack? Or why smartphones seem to get cheaper as the months go on? Well, we are going to uncover the invisible levers that dictate exactly what sits on those store shelves and exactly why it's there. Okay, let's dive right into our roadmap. We've got 5 main topics today. First, stock versus actual supply. Second, price and production costs. Third, technology and infrastructure. Fourth, government and natural conditions. And finally, expectations and market factors.
Starting with Section 1, stock versus actual supply. Before we start pulling any levers, we really need to nail down what supply actually means.
Because, just having a lot of something doesn't mean you have a lot of supply. Picture an orchard. All those mangoes growing out there on the trees, that represents the potential stock. It's the absolute maximum amount that could exist. But only the mangoes the seller actually brings to the market counter, sorts into boxes, and is ready to sell, that represents the actual supply. So without stock, supply is impossible. But stock usually far exceeds the actual supply.
The crucial takeaway here is that supply is a flow concept. It's not just a dusty pile of boxes sitting in the back of a warehouse. It's always expressed relative to a specific price and a specific period of time, like a day, a week, or a month. If a seller is willing and able to sell 1,000 kilograms of rice at 40 rupees a kilo today, that exact scenario right there is our supply.
Moving on to Section 2, price and production costs. Let's grab our very first and arguably most powerful lever.
This lever is all about money, and it creates this constant tug of war. Picture a seller standing in front of a market shelf. When a digital price tag jumps from 10 rupees to 50 rupees, that seller's thrilled, right? They're going to quickly stack more product boxes onto the display line. That's the market price pulling supply up. But then, boom, a giant bill for raw materials, fuel, and wages arrives. Suddenly the seller looks pretty worried and they pull half those boxes right back into the dark stockroom. That is the cost of production, pushing supply down. It is a literal battle for profitability.
And we can actually see this tug of war mathematically if we look at the data across multiple sellers. When the market price hits a high, let's say 50 rupees, sellers are super motivated by that profit. So they offer their highest combined supply peak, reaching 1,800 kilograms. But if that price suddenly drops back down to 10 rupees, the total market supply just plummets to 600 kilograms. It's a totally direct, undeniable relationship.
All right, Section 3, technology and infrastructure. Let's look past the individual seller for a second and focus on the systemic tools that make mass production even possible.
Let's see how these tools actually build our market machine. Imagine you swap out a clunky old manual machine for a high-speed automated robotic arm. It effortlessly creates hundreds of perfect items in seconds, cuts down waste, and massively drives supply outward. But what if the delivery truck carrying all those perfectly manufactured items gets stuck on a muddy road under a terrible storm? That supply literally never reaches the buyer. Contrast that messy situation with a sleek train flying smoothly across a modern transport highway, delivering goods instantly.
So advanced technology and solid transport break down the supply barriers. A shortage in any of these critical infrastructural facilities, whether it's the transport networks, the communication systems tracking the orders, or the power and energy supply actually running those robotic arms, essentially breaks the entire supply chain. It completely halts the flow of goods to the market.
Which brings us to Section 4, government and natural conditions. These are massive, unpredictable levers pulled by external forces from the state and, quite literally, the sky.
Imagine a heavy red stamp landing on a factory roof, and it just reads, "New tax." Boom. The cost to produce just shot up, and the entire production line slows down. But then, let's say it's instantly replaced by a glowing green shield reading, "Government subsidy." This protective shield lowers the financial burden and immediately restarts the assembly line at full speed. Government policies constantly dictate what can be profitably supplied.
And for agricultural goods, nature is absolutely running the show. Think about it. What happens when a weather forecast calling for perfect sunny rainfall instantly shifts to a harsh, sudden drought? For commodities like wheat, rice, or those mangoes we looked at earlier, an unexpected shift to unfavorable climatic conditions will immediately lead to a devastating decrease in output, and that happens regardless of how high the market price is.
Finally, Section 5, expectations and market factors.
This is all about how thoughts about tomorrow literally change our actions today.
Imagine a merchant sitting down with their morning coffee and reading this headline. Price is expected to triple next week. What are they going to do? They're going to immediately walk over, gather up their current items, and lock them inside a heavy steel vault. They hoard them. They withhold their stock because they expect a massive payday in the near future. As a result, today's active market supply instantly plummets to zero. Future expectations totally dictate present supply. And beyond just future prices, we really have to consider corporate goals. Picture two different corporate banners flying outside a headquarters. One firm is focused purely on maximizing prestige and total market dominance, so they might flood the market with supply to just drown out competitors. The other firm? They have strict profit limits and cap their output to maintain exclusivity. Factors like these, alongside export conditions and industrial relations with workers, constantly adjust a firm's willingness to supply goods. So let's put this all together. When you aggregate the psychology, the costs, the technology, and the weather impacts of all individual sellers, let's just call them seller A, B, and C, you get a market supply schedule. Look at how clearly this maps out. As the price goes from 10 to 30 to 50 rupees, the combined output rises perfectly in parallel, jumping from 600 to 1200 to 1800 kilograms. And if we take that exact table and plot it on a graph, we get the market supply curve. Notice that positive slope? This upward sloping line from left to right is the ultimate visual proof of the law of supply. It confirms the direct relationship between price and quantity, assuming, of course, that all those other levers we just talked about, like technology, weather, and taxes, remain perfectly constant. As we wrap up this explainer, I want you to consider the shelves at your own local store. The market really is a delicate machine, constantly being pushed and pulled by these massive forces. So, next time a product completely vanishes from the aisle, or its price suddenly drops by half, ask yourself, is it a new tax, a drought, a robotic arm? Which of these fascinating market forces is truly responsible for what you are buying today? Keep observing, keep learning, and we'll see you in the next explainer.